Today we're going to be turning this Redwood 2x4 into that 8-foot trellis. So let's get started. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to rip this 2x4 down the center. And the way that we do that is just on the table saw in multiple passes. A roller stand really helps for this if you're ripping long material. And also I'm going to use a little kerf board because these boards tend to have a little bow in them, so I want to make sure that it stays against the fence while I'm ripping. Now I'm going to bring this blade up to the surface of the table saw, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 rotations for the first cut. Now another thing you want to think about is outfeed. You want to make sure you've got a proper outfeed table. This one isn't the greatest, but it'll do the job for now. So from here, what we're going to do is, ideally we'd flip the board over this way to make sure we got in the same line. However, it's not crucial, and I'm pretty well lined up. So I'm just going to flip the board over this way. You can see I've got my cut already in it. And then we're going to run it through this way. Now another thing you want to think about when you're ripping these down is you don't want to have your fingers over the blade, and it's bound to happen when you're ripping because you're going to have to support the back of this over the back of your saw. So you definitely want to have a push block, something like that, to help you along here. So from here I'm just going to go 3 cranks, 1, 2, 3, and I'll make my second cut. Alright, now that I've got these ripped down the center, I've got 2 boards. Now, you want to use a ripping blade, something like a 40 tooth, that's real aggressive. Remember, you're making something for the yard, so it's not fine woodworking here. Now, you're already set up to make your other passes. I'm going to take my kerf board off, lower my blade to the appropriate height, and then we're going to rip these into strips. Alright, now with these strips, when you cut them, a lot of times what you're going to get is ripping 2x4s like that, is you're going to get a bow in there. You always want the bow side down. I find that's easier to keep it compressed to the table so you don't have lips. If you do have spots where you do have the bow and it doesn't quite touch the blade, you can always just run the blade a little bit higher from the beginning. Otherwise, you need to be careful, be aware that is potential kickback, which is why you'd see me with the stop block having pushing the bow to the fence. So I've got these ripped, and these are not quite 3/4, seems to be the best size. I kind of just centered it in the middle of the 2x4, ripped it down the center, and used that same measurement so I get perfect square. So let's go over to the cement pad and we'll assemble this. So if you don't already know what size you want your trellis, the ones I'm making are about 3 feet wide with about an inch overhang on the horizontal slats. All I'm going to do is I'm going to see where I want 3 feet to be and kind of lay these out. And you're going to end up with a couple that are a little bit skinnier, and I'll show you what to do with those at the end. So I'm going to say it's about I think about 6 looks fine, and then we'll cut these down and cut those down. So this part's pretty easy. We want 3 feet, which is 36 inches. And we want an inch overhang on each side, which puts us at 38 inches. So we're just going to mark 38 inches. Okay, now the measurements are pretty easy, but with the bowed boards it can be a little more difficult. I'm going to make a couple of these, so I actually made just a little block that's just 6 inches wide, which is about what I need for the spacing. I'm going to use that to space these out, and it'll make it a little bit quicker. Now, if you've seen the ones at the home stores, the trellises, I don't really like them. They're kind of rickety, and I don't think they glued the joints. I'm going to throw a couple dabs of glue on these joints just to make it a little more sturdy. I know already where I want the first slat to be. And that's going to be at 12 inches. So I'm just going to go on each of these boards and measure 12 inches. So I'm using 1 1/4 inch staples for this. It should make it pretty simple. All I'm going to do is just put this in the center, line these up. I know that's square already. And glue is going to go on all these spots here. So I'm just going to put a dab of glue on all these. Grab the piece that I'd like, make sure you turn it the way that you want it to be. And then I'm going to give it about an inch, 1 1/4 overhang. Once again, these aren't crucial. So just kind of a lot of it is just playing by eye. Lined up on the second mark, pressed in here, and drive the second one. And do the same thing with the third. I'm just going to move my spacer block over and we'll continue on from there. Alright, now I've got the first one done. I'm going to measure 18 inches in, basically do the same procedure. Now remember, if you're using a 6 foot versus an 8 foot, you may want different dimensions, so definitely keep that in mind. Alright, and then we're going to find center between these two. So we're looking at 17 inches there. So we're at 17 inches. Mark that all the way down. Let's see, want to, we don't want to go on this side. You want to stick line right down with your piece of last yourself. That's the measure. That's no, down. So it's just so the blue piece of the outer structure there. It's going to be a little more really. Yes, I know. I don't like so much. There's a line here. Should I see? So I think we're just going to use it. And since you've got pieces left over, you can also do a piece in the center here. Something like that. So it's only going to go really on these two slats. And you just line it up by eye. So there it is, a super easy redwood trellis out of a single 2x4. These are 8 foot, you could do 6 foot or 12 foot if you wanted to, all using the same method. The cheapest ones I've seen of these, even the little ones, are like 12 or 13 bucks. So for a $7 redwood 2x4, you're doing pretty good. But I've got a few more of these I've got to make, so until the next video, you guys have a good one.